My name is Melvin Sloan, and I'm the youngest child of Earl and Leona Sloan, and my mother is the lady sitting in the middle. My oldest sister is on my far side, and that's Nelda Garrett. And then my middle sister is Joyce Sloan Smithwick, and I have one sister that's still living, and she's not here today. Her name was Robbie Sloan Lee. And I had an older brother that lived here on the park. His name was Ralph Sloan.
How many in the family?
There was 5 children and my mom and dad.
And where was you lived here before it was a park?
No.
Ah.
I'm going to let my mother tell you how we got here living on the Cedar Forest. Mom?
We lived at Greenvale, and by my husband Earl visiting Huddleston's store. At that time, it was a big old pot-bellied stove sitting in the middle of the store, and people came there to visit. And he learned about the Sam Drennan place being available for rent. And he came down here to this place here and talked to Dick Huddleston. And we rented the Sam Drennan place and moved January the 4th, 1940. And Melvin wasn't born at this time. He was born the same year in March.
So you moved here after the federal government had bought the land to make a park?
Yes, in 1940.
And where was was it located within the park boundaries?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Yes, that was in the park boundaries. All of this had been bought, and these buildings were already established. This lodge and the pool down there, and then the houses out here that the superintendents and employees, some of the employees lived in those houses that's out here in front. It's 3 or 4 of them.
When you moved out here, were you farming or working in town, or how did you?
We farmed the Drennan place.
And was that farming for?
Corn and hay, and vegetables. And we had cows, and we had a team, and we had no electricity, and not the equipment that you have today.
When did electricity come to the area?
It never came to the places out from here for rent. This place had all electricity.
And let's see. So, what were you doing? What were the parents doing before you moved out here?
Farming.
They were farming elsewhere, and then just found this place for rent and moved out.
Yeah, we lived at Greenvale.
My mom and dad, my dad was a sharecropper,
Uh-huh.
and they lived in a community called Greenvale, which is about 15 miles from here. It's still in Wilson County. And they had 4 children at that time. So they decided they would make a move. And this farm, what we call the Sam Drennan place, was one of the very few places that the state at that time would rent to people.
Okay.
Because after the state had bought this land, they kind of shut the land down and wouldn't, most of the people had already left by that time. There was very few people living on the park at that time. But Dad was able to rent this farm, and it was several acres for $40 a month. So he and Mom moved down here and brought the 4 children here. And then, like, I was born here at the park in March of that year, 1940. And they kept renting that place there for many years. And then about 3 years after they moved into San Brennan place, we moved to another place called the Pardon Place, which is just down the road a little bit closer to this park area here. And Dad start working at the park here for the state in about 42, 43?
About, I would guess, about 43.
And how long did he work for the park?
Until 1951.
And what did you do for the park?
He was a
Ranger.
ranger.
Ah. When did the park go from federal ownership to state ownership? Do you know?
No, I don't know that.
Back when we first came here, everybody called this place Cedar Forest.
Cedar Forest?
And we all the ones that's here today, we still call it Cedar Forest. But later, some few years ago, the state of Tennessee named it the Cedars of Lebanon State Park. If you'll look out on the cornerstone here, I think you'll see it's called Cedar Forest.
Cedar Forest.
And if you look at the old gate that used to be standing out at the entrance, it had Cedar Forest wrote on it. All the people in this area that lived in this area, that's what we called it. Of course, the state has changed the name.
I've done some caving here and around in the park, and I did a lot of exploring around, not nearly as much as you have, of course, but I get the impression that why this area? Why would someone, the state or the government, buy this area to make a park out of it? Is there a major attraction? Is there some center?
This area right in here, you got to remember this is right after the Depression. People needed employment. This was the largest standing tract of cedar in the United States, of living cedar, red cedar. This goes back to the biblical days of the town in Lebanon. See, if you think about our town, our county seat is Lebanon. So in this area right here, because of the landscape and because of the cedar, I think was one of the main areas. Of course, the people here did need some maybe assistance, and at that time Roosevelt was trying to help the people, so they bought this land here. I've been told that about the 9,000 acres they bought here was the average price was about $7 an acre, $6-7 an acre is what they paid for all of this 9,000 acres here. And this particular spot here for the park, I really don't know, but right in this area here there is a lot of caves. It's not but about half a mile from the main highway, which many years ago was Highway 10. Now it's Highway 231.
The main highway was called Highway 10.
Highway 10 many years ago. And it was the main thoroughfare from the north-south. So I think, but the park lies on both sides of the Highway 231. But my dad, mama, and the family, we settled in here, and this was our home. This was actually a new beginning for them, and we started out here on government property, $40 a month, a few heads of cattle.
Looking around at the soil, there's not much around.
Well, when you go back to where we really were, there was a lot of good land. There is a lot of good land in this area. But if you go for more than 50 years without doing anything to it, without bush hogging, and all they did was planted trees. And so it's kind of been in isolation for more than 50 years. And so you can imagine what kind of shape it is now, and that's what they want to do with it. They wanted to establish it as a forest, and that's what it is.
Well, they've got it.
They've got it. My sister Nelda, now I got a call. My sister Nelda married and she and her husband, I guess their first house was the house that I was born in, the Drune place. And they lived there and they milked cows for my father on the shares. And while they were living there, their first child was born. So in my family, I was born in that house, and then her daughter Linda was born. Now she wasn't born in that house, I was, but Linda was born at the hospital, but that's where they were living.
Was that on this side of the road or the other side?
On this side of the road.
Okay.
I'd say it's about 1.5 miles from the park area here. Yeah, it's and then when we go back to where our home was, when I go back, and I love to go back. We have to walk to it now. The roads are all gone. The house is gone. The barn is gone. But when we lived there, you was asking about land. When we lived there, you could walk out on the porch and you could see several acres of open land. And we ran lots of cattle. Used to run. In fact, at one time, Nelda and her husband milked 40-something cows there by hand every day.
That's a job.
Well, it was hard work.
I grew up in North Carolina on a hog farm, hogs and chickens. The guys I went to school with were dairy farmers, and they were up, 4:30 every morning with the electric milkers, and I thought that was tough.
Yeah. So then Mama got involved in family got involved with a little church here called the Hurricane Church. The correct pronunciation is Hurricane.
Hurricane?
Hurricane, Hurricane. But if you live here, you called it Hurricane. That's the way you pronounced it.
Why is that?
Because that was the way that the local people, that was the pronunciation that they gave it, of the spelling. Quickly we could tell if there was anybody around that wasn't really from our area, because they didn't pronounce the name of the church like we did.
And where's the church now?
Oh, it's about 4 miles south of the park here. It's still there. It was established, I think, in 1815. I believe it's a little Baptist church. They still have services there every Sunday. At one time, back in the early 1800s or 1840 or 50 something, they had as many as 1,500 to 2,000 people that gathered there for a special weekend meeting. And in the early 1800s and up until the mid 30s, this was a very, very prosperous neighborhood community.
You can speak too.
It was known as the Union Baptist Church
First.
and then into Hurricane.
Were you all members of the church?
Yes.
My mother started playing piano there in I'd say in the 40s.
Early 40s.
Early 40s. And played piano there, and we were all members of that church until 60s something, wasn't it, Mama? And then she moved to a little closer church where she still plays the organ. She'll be 92 years old October the 11th of 1998.
She should be pretty good at it by now.
She's been practicing.
I'm still trying to learn.
Oh,
Our daddy was the song leader at one time at Hurricane.
so
and-
between songs and organs, they couldn't get away from your family.
We had piano at Hurricane.
Now, I'm going to give you a little more information. In the early 40s, they started having in the late 30s, they started having square dances here at the park. Mr. Julius Robinson, who was one time worked here at this park, I think he might have been one of the first superintendents, as the job was. He was a real good fiddle player, and he enjoyed that kind of music. And so this area, this being the largest auditorium around,
Right here in the
right
church?
here in this area here inside, this is the original building like it was. They started having square dances here in late 30s. And of course, Mr. Julius was here, and a lot of the neighbors, and some people from Lebanon would come. The Robinsons would come out.
Smith.
Gene Smith.
Bill Smith, Mr. Jones. Of course, Mr. Julius played the fiddle. And my father Earl worked here. My brother Ralph came in and started keeping the door, 50 cents a night. And then they asked him later could he play guitar, and he could, so they paid him $1 a night. And they had square dances here with every winter. They didn't have square dances in summertime because it was too hot. The people was tending to their crops or whatever. But in the wintertime, everybody that left the park, lots of the people would come back and get together on Saturday nights.
How many people would show up for those?
Oh, there'd be, I'd say from 40 to 100 people.
So it was like a reunion every other weekend?
Every weekend.
Every weekend.
Lots of people would come here. In the late 40s, Roy Acuff come out here and performed, brought his group. Then in 1952, Ralph, my brother Ralph, formed the square dance team and went to the Grand Ole Opry and danced there till he died in 1980. But in 1977, PBS TV, the Opry was filming a special show, Grand Ole Opry Live, and they'd made a contract with PBS, public television. And we came back to the new lodge down here, and we had a square dance that night. Oh, there was maybe 1,000 people here. All of them couldn't get in. They showed that show of the square dance. The park here, this park here, the one thing it's always really been known for was the dancing, the square dancing. Very well known for the square dancing. In recent years, they've stopped having it for some reason. But in 1977, they filmed this thing. They showed it on TV. That was the #1 show that PBS has ever had, the showing of the Grand Ole Opry. And in between, they had a segment there where they did show the Cedars of Lebanon State Park and showed the people square dancing. And of course, it showed my brother, and he passed away in 1980. And now I'm still dancing the Grand Ole Opry, and we started here 1942.
That was the Ralph Sloan dancers on the Opry, come out between breaks at the Opry and
yeah, they was part of the Opry. They started in 1952.
When I moved here, I guess it was in '78.
Yeah.
I used my roommates had gotten a job working with Wilma Lee Cooper on the Opry, and so I was backstage and hanging out all the time, and so I probably met you there. Don't even know it.
My name's Melvin, and you know what years you were there?
78, 79.
Yeah, well, Ralph lived until 1980, and he passed away March of 1980. I was there. I started in March of 1980. Woody Paul was the fiddle player for Wilma Lee when I went
remember
there.
Woody Paul got the job.
Yeah.
And
now he's one of the.
Now he's one of those other guys.
Yeah, he's one of the other guys.
He's like
Riders in the Sky.
Yeah, I used to hang out with Woody a lot. He was there to turn the camera off before I say that.
Yeah. But he's a nice guy.
Yes, he is.
And Ralph's group they called him the Tennessee Travelers.
Tennessee, yeah.
Yeah, and we worked. We still use both names.
Agnes was saying that the water here dried up.
Let my mom tell you about the water situation here and where the wells was and how my dad used to work on the well. Tell them, Mama.
About the water.
I don't remember.
The cave.
Well,
We go back in the cave.
Oh, there's a big cave,
Jackson Cave.
Jackson Cave, right back down here to our right. And he and Dick Huddleston went back there in that cave. I think it's many feet back there. And I remember him talking about how cold the water was. But there was a huge stream of water. I think I forgot the rest of it.
The pump would go bad, and they would have to go back every so often and redo the pump. And that was the water for this area, for the main lodge here, and the houses and the swimming pool. It was pumped out of the cave, and it used to be a reservoir, a wooden reservoir tank on a hill right just a few 100 feet from here. And that cave was kind of under that reservoir, the main stream.
So the stream went up to there?
So they would pump the water up to the reservoir, and then that reservoir would gravity flow into these other parts of the park area here. Used to have a lot of cabins, and all the swimming pool water, everything came from that one thing. And whenever the pump would go bad or something would go wrong, then you would have to go back into the cave, and that's what my dad and Mr. Holston did. They'd go back into the cave to the pump and repair the pump and give them more water. Yeah, it was kind of, I think it was described as a real large body of water where the pump was in.
It is. I've been back there quite a
Yeah.
lot. There's a stream, two streams that run underneath here that just, they flow all year round as far as I can tell. The pipe's still in there.
Now, of course, we have, several years ago, they put in our city water. So we've got water everywhere now, but we still don't. When we lived here, and the people that lived here, out on the park, we never had any electricity, anything. We could have lived here 100 years ago, before the park was started, and it would have basically been the same way of living. Not any conveniences, but the people, you'll find that all the people that lived here, they cared for each other, and they loved each other. And like I was born right here on the park, in the whole house, and one of the neighbors came and helped my mother deliver me, and such things as that. You know, you took care of each other.
Well, that's called community, and we don't see it today in the cities because they build communities. And
well, there's a good thing about this park here. There's great things about this park because it's now for everybody in the world. But there's sad parts about this world too, about this park. It's very sad when you really stop to think about it. They bought 9,000 acres of land and had all the people move off, and they totally destroyed your roots. And they destroyed cemeteries, they destroyed schools. Well, they didn't destroy them, but they're no longer there, as you know, you can't easily find them. They destroyed their schools, their old stores are gone, and you take 9,000 acres, how many people would be living here today? They didn't get to hand their family farms down because the state and the federal government bought it.
was there a resentment or happiness or both?
Well, I really don't think so. I don't think it was a resentment. It's just a fact that a lot of this part of our civilization here just more or less stopped. We had to be absorbed into other parts of the world, other parts of the country.
I've talking to some other interviews I've done at Tim's Ford State Park and Fall Creek Falls, and some of the people there weren't too happy about saying, well, bye-bye, go away. That just,
well, you gotta move.
Yeah, I gotta go.
Uh-oh. You have something to say before you go, don't you?
Tell them I can.
I enjoyed my growing up here very much. It was a hard living, but today you look back and think of the good old days, even though no electricity, no running water. I went to Hurricane School one year, one teacher school, one room school. Then I went to major school after that, and now it's a great pleasure to look back on my younger days and reminisce about what happened. And my children just can't believe what I went through with. They think it's terrible, that little things that I can tell them. And another thing we hadn't mentioned is when the war was on, the soldiers camped all around this area.
This is a training facility or just
Yes, it was. Maneuvers. We had maneuvers here, and you could wake up and have soldiers on your front porch every morning. And they'd have battles, and we learned a lot about the war during that. We didn't have much radios. It just had to be a battery radio, and that's the only way we could keep up with the outside world.
So what did you do for fun?
Work? No, we had fun. We go to church and visit your neighbors at church. And my mama had an old organ, and they accused me of playing the organ all the time. But old pump organ now. This is not a real electric organ. But I enjoyed my music, and I still enjoy music. I still listen to my mother play and enjoy that. I graduated from Lebanon High School in 1950 after I left a major school.
Hey, where are you living now?
I live in Mount Juliet, Tennessee.
Uh-huh. Married, kids, family?
I have 5 children. I'm divorced.
Uh,
I have 10 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren.
Now,
great-grandchildren.
I have to ask a silly story. Agnes and Shannon were talking about the swimming pool that was over here. I know you got to go.
We weren't allowed to go in the swimming pool. Mama didn't allow us girls to, but Ralph could.
That's exactly what she said.
I could sneak in on Sunday afternoon, and that was about it.
Yeah, they were saying that proper church people didn't swim.
That's right.
That's right.
You're correct.
And we didn't wear shorts, and we didn't wear long pants.
Ask this lady. She's the one that
She's
set
a
the rules.
troublemaker.
Yeah. Didn't you? Didn't you set the rules? We didn't all go by them.
What was your favorite, man? Was it a hickory switch or a board?
Fly swatter would do. Was talking about what we'd done at night after we've worked our farms all day. We'd gather up and have singings, and then another thing we done a lot was play rook. Our neighbors would come in, or we'd go to the neighbors and have big rook games. So we had a good time.
Mama, you tell this man how many children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren you have.
I didn't bring my record.
Well, I'm going to tell you. She had 6 children. She's got 18 grandchildren. She's got about 40 great-grandchildren and 10 great-great-grandchildren. Something like that.
Family reunions, you have to rent the park out.
Yeah.
Christmas and Easter.
There's not many people that has that many great-great-grandchildren. We have 5 generations several times in our family.
Do they all dance and play music?
Most of them.
We haven't heard from you, man.
I believe they pretty well covered everything other than the entertainment. Mama was telling about playing rook and the instruments, and we just had a lot of fun. And I met my husband here, and we were married 40 years. He passed away.
And where were you living?
James Garrett was my husband, and his family was from this territory.
They're farmers also?
Yes, they were farmers, and I live in Lebanon now.
Have you been back in the cave?
Not yet. Not yet.
Don't go in white. It's real muddy.
Oh. And I didn't get to go in the swimming pool till after I married.
Well, they were telling about this rock right here. Do you know where that rock came from?
The rock is not sitting now where it used to sit. The rock, that was a hand-hewed rock, and I believe that rock came from a steam engine or something at an old mill. And I believe they brought that rock down here, and the rock used to sit about 50 foot or so over against that rock fence over there from where it is now. Now the reason this concrete's here like it is, they had square dances here, and it got so large that they outgrew the inside of the park here. So they poured this concrete here, and they moved the square dances outside, and they started having them every Saturday. And you'd come out here and dance out on this concrete. When they started pouring the concrete, then they moved that rock.
Well, what year was did that happen at?
This here?
When they had to move outdoors because of...
In the 50s. I would think it was in 50s or early 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, Shannon was saying the rock was the base bedrock for the steam engine at one of the local mills.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's up on Fall Creek. I think that's what it was.
Well, in the just a few more. I know it's getting a little warm out here for me too. I know the cicadas are back this year. I guess.
Yeah.
I remember the last time I was in town, and the time before that I was in North Carolina, and they're not bad this year yet.
Have you been to Maggie Valley?
Yeah. Yes, I've done that. Been half of everywhere.
We were invited to Maggie Valley last October. I was invited to accept the Hall of Fame plaque for Ralph Sloan, the Tennessee Traveler. And also while we were there, Melvin was inducted into the Hall of Fame last October.
Did you go?
19 and what?
97.
97. 1997. I enjoyed being up there. Beautiful scenery.
What do you miss about the park here now?
Not getting to come back. Oh,
Well, that's totally, if you come out here now, the park is totally different from what it was up until 1960, 65 or so. And 50 years later or whatever, the faces are not here. So you see several strangers, but every once in a while you still see somebody that's from this area. And it's great to get to sit there and talk to them, reminisce and think, you know. Think about better times and younger times, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, think about when you didn't have aches and pains, and you know, when Mom and Dad was still there and everything was fine.
The park now, there's camping. There's a few cabins around, and was it open for camping in the early 50s? And
No, not the campers. They did have a few cabins back in those days, and some people would come and stay for a week, or you know, they could rent those cabins a week at a time or whatever. I think maybe they had 6 or 7 cabins, and people would come out and stay.
when did the federal government had it for? They bought it, developed what we see here now, as I understand, and then became state property at some time. Do you know what year that was?
No, I remember when it happened, but I don't remember when it was, what year it was. Do you remember? You about ready to go? You about ready to move?
whenever y'all get through.
We don't want you to get too hot.
Well, I'm doing all right.
Okay.
Well, let's see. Well, I was going to ask you to tell me a mischievous story in your youth, but your mom's here, and you didn't want to admit to anything now.
Is that right, Mama?
What did he say?
Did you ever have any mischievous things going on right here? He asked me that, but I can't tell him, so I'm going to ask you that.
I don't reckon.
Oh, you don't reckon? I wouldn't admit it if I were you, if I did. I'd act like Nelda.
Mrs. Sloan, where was your family from?
Wilson County,
In
Canesville, and Lascassas, Tennessee, in Rutherford County.
And what were your parents' names?
Mike and Anna Adams.
Adams. That's an old name.
They, all of our family has been living in this county. Our Sloans and our Adamses, many years, either 1800s, real early 1800s, maybe some before that, and they basically all started right here in Wilson County.
Do you know what planted the first seed of the Adams or the Sloans coming to here?
No.
The Sloans lived in Greenville.
I really don't know. I've studied some. I'm not enough to say. The Sloans came down through, I think, Kentucky. Really came from England.
North Carolina.
I don't know about the Adamses.
I was doing some research and a video about settling of the plateau in the area, and I just wondered what caused people to cross the plateau and come on down.
Yeah.
it's something else. Well, I thank you for your time and your stories.
Thank you.